For 3 days straight, a wild foal appeared at the edge of the forest, just standing, staring, never approaching, never leaving. Forest Ranger James Peterson thought it was just curious. But when he finally understood what the foal was trying to tell him, the truth left him absolutely speechless. This isn't just a story about a wild horse. It's about a debt repaid, a promise kept, and a connection that transcends species. If you're fascinated by incredible true stories of wildlife and the mysterious ways animals communicate with us, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Trust me, you need to see how this unfolds. James Peterson had been a forest ranger in Montana's Bitterroot National Forest for nearly 2 decades. In that time, he'd encountered virtually every scenario the wilderness could throw at him. Bear encounters, lost hikers, forest fires, poaching incidents, and countless wildlife emergencies. He thought he'd seen it all. He was wrong. It started on a crisp October morning. James arrived at the remote ranger station just after dawn, as he did every day, ready to begin his patrol of the surrounding wilderness. The station sat in a small clearing surrounded by dense pine forest, about 15 miles from the nearest town. It was isolated, peaceful, and exactly the kind of place James loved. As he stepped out of his truck, something caught his eye. At the tree line, approximately 50 yards from the station, stood a young, wild foal. The horse appeared to be around 6 months old, with a sleek bay coat that gleamed in the early morning light. It stood perfectly still, its dark eyes fixed intently on the ranger station. James paused, coffee mug halfway to his lips. Wild horses weren't uncommon in this region. Montana had several wild Mustang populations that roamed the public lands, but they were typically shy around human structures, keeping their distance from buildings and roads. This foal's behavior was unusual. "Hey there, little one," James called out gently, curious but not concerned. The foal's ears swiveled toward his voice, but it didn't move. It just kept staring at the building. James went about his morning routine, checking equipment, reviewing the day's patrol schedule, responding to emails. Every time he glanced out the window, the foal was still there. Same spot, same unwavering stare. It didn't graze, didn't wander, didn't even seem to blink. After about an hour, James decided to try approaching. He walked slowly toward the tree line, speaking in calm, soothing tones. "What are you looking for, buddy? You lost?" When James got within about 30 feet, the foal took several steps backward, maintaining the distance between them. It wasn't panicked or frightened, just cautious. But here's what struck James as odd. The foal didn't run away completely. It retreated just far enough to maintain its comfort zone, then stopped and resumed its vigil, staring at the station. James tried a few more times throughout the morning, even leaving out some apple slices and fresh water near the tree line. The foal ignored them. It wasn't interested in food or water. It was interested in the building. By mid-afternoon, James had to leave for his patrol. When he returned 3 hours later, he half expected the foal to be gone. Instead, it was in almost exactly the same position, as if it had barely moved. The sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the clearing, but the foal remained, its gaze fixed on the ranger station with an intensity that was beginning to unnerve James. "This is weird," James muttered to himself, pulling out his binoculars for a closer look. Through the lenses, he could see the foal more clearly. It appeared healthy, no visible injuries, good body condition, alert posture. But there was something in its eyes, something that looked almost like determination, purpose. As darkness fell and James prepared to head home for the night, the foal finally moved, but only to shift slightly, adjusting its position. Even in the fading light, James could see those eyes, still watching, still waiting. Day 2 brought more of the same, except now James arrived at the station with a sense of anticipation mixed with concern. Would the foal still be there? Had it stayed all night? Was something wrong with it? His questions were answered the moment he pulled into the clearing. There, in almost the exact same spot as yesterday, stood the foal. It looked slightly more tired, and James noticed it had finally grazed a bit. There were signs of disturbed grass near its position, but otherwise it maintained its mysterious vigil. James immediately called his supervisor and the regional wildlife biologist, Dr. Elena Rodriguez. "Elena, I've got a situation here that I can't quite figure out," he explained, describing the foal's bizarre behavior. Elena arrived around noon, intrigued by James's report. She was an expert in wild horse behavior with over 15 years of experience studying Montana's Mustang populations. If anyone could explain this, it would be her. Together, they observed the foal from the station windows, not wanting to disturb it. Elena took notes, snapped photos, and consulted her field guides and previous research data. "James, this is highly unusual," Elena said, her scientific curiosity clearly piqued. "Wild foals at this age are typically very attached to their band, especially their mothers. They don't venture off alone, and they certainly don't fixate on human structures like this." "Could it be orphaned?" James asked. "Maybe it's looking for help?" Elena shook her head slowly. "If it were orphaned and desperate, it would be showing signs of distress, calling out, pacing, trying to approach for help. This foal is calm, deliberate. It's not asking for help. It's waiting for something." They tried various approaches. Elena attempted using recorded horse vocalizations to elicit a response. Nothing. They tried moving around outside to see if the foal was watching a specific person or just the building. The foal's gaze followed the building, not the people. They even tried covering the windows to see if it was reacting to reflections. The foal didn't change its behavior at all. "It's like it's keeping watch," James observed, a chill running down his spine despite the warm afternoon sun. But watching for what? That evening, James made a decision that broke protocol, but followed his gut instinct. He stayed overnight at the station, something rangers rarely did, since most lived in town. He set up a cot in the office, made some coffee, and settled in to observe. Through the night, he periodically checked on the foal using night vision binoculars. The young horse had bedded down near the tree line but hadn't left. Even in rest, its position was oriented toward the station, its head facing the building. Around 3 a.m., something remarkable happened. James heard a sound, a soft, melodic whinny. He grabbed the binoculars and looked out. The foal was standing now, alert, staring at the station. It whinnied again, a sound that seemed less like a call for attention and more like communication. Like it was trying to tell him something. "What do you want me to understand?" James whispered to himself, frustration and fascination warring within him. "What are you trying to say?" The foal held his gaze through the binoculars for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, it turned its head to look deeper into the forest, then back to the station. The gesture was unmistakable. "Follow me. Look there." But dawn was still hours away, and the forest at night was no place for impromptu expeditions. Day 3. James woke at dawn to find the foal in a slightly different position. Closer to the forest trail, that led deeper into the backcountry. Its behavior had shifted subtly. It was still watching the station, but now there was a restlessness to its movements. It would take a few steps toward the trail, look back at the station, then return to its watching post. The pattern repeated every few minutes. "You want me to follow you?" James said aloud, the realization hitting him with sudden clarity. "That's what this is about. You've been waiting for me to understand." James quickly geared up. Radio, first aid kit, GPS, water, and his sidearm, standard protocol for backcountry work. He informed his supervisor of his intentions. "I think this foal is trying to lead me to something. Could be an injured animal, could be nothing, but I need to check it out." As soon as James stepped outside and began walking toward the trail, the foal's entire demeanor changed. Its ears pricked forward. Its body language shifted from patient waiting to active purpose. When James reached the trailhead, the foal started moving into the forest, maintaining a distance of about 40 feet ahead, constantly looking back to ensure James was following. "This is absolutely incredible," James breathed, pulling out his phone to document the experience. He'd heard stories of animals seeking human help, dogs leading people to injured owners, dolphins guiding lost swimmers to shore. But he'd never experienced it firsthand. The foal led him deeper into the wilderness, along a trail James knew well, then veered off onto a less traveled path. They climbed steadily upward, through dense pine forest and across rocky outcroppings. The foal moved with purpose, never hesitating, always checking that James followed. After nearly 90 minutes of hiking, covering roughly 3 miles, they reached a remote canyon area that James rarely patrolled. The foal stopped at the canyon's edge and whinnied loudly. Not the soft communication from before, but an urgent, distressed call. James's heart raced as he carefully approached the edge. What he saw below made everything suddenly, heartbreakingly clear. At the bottom of a shallow ravine, approximately 30 feet down, lay an adult mare. She was on her side, clearly injured, her leg positioned at an unnatural angle. Even from this distance, James could see she was alive but in serious trouble. And from her appearance, the distinctive star marking on her forehead, her coloring, James recognized her. "Oh my God," he whispered. "That's Starlight." 3 months earlier, James had rescued this very mare from a barbed wire fence where she'd become entangled. He'd spent hours carefully cutting her free, treating her wounds, and ensuring she could rejoin her band safely. The mare had been skittish at first, but had eventually allowed him to help, seeming to understand he meant no harm. And this foal, this persistent, patient, impossibly intelligent foal, was her offspring. The young horse had traveled miles from where its mother had fallen, found the one human it somehow knew had helped before, and spent 3 days trying to communicate a simple but desperate message. "She needs you again. Please come. Please help." James grabbed his radio with shaking hands. "This is Peterson. I need emergency wildlife rescue at my location. Large animal extraction. And Elena, you're not going to believe this story." The foal stood beside him now, finally calm, its mission accomplished. It had brought help. It had saved its mother. The next 3 hours were a carefully orchestrated ballet of emergency wildlife rescue. James coordinated with Elena, the local wildlife services, and a specialized large animal rescue team that dealt with situations exactly like this. A helicopter was dispatched with a sling system designed for extracting horses from difficult terrain. While waiting for the team to arrive, James carefully descended into the ravine using climbing gear he'd retrieved from his truck. The mare, Starlight, recognized him immediately. Despite her pain and fear, she remained calm as James approached, speaking in the same gentle voice he'd used during her fence rescue months ago. "Easy, girl, I've got you," James soothed, carefully examining her injuries. She had a badly fractured front leg and had likely been trapped here for at least 2 days, possibly 3, right around the time her foal had first appeared at the ranger station. The young horse must have stayed with its mother initially, then made the desperate decision to seek help when it became clear she couldn't get out on her own. Above the ravine, the foal paced anxiously, calling down to its mother. Starlight responded with soft, reassuring whinnies, despite her condition. The bond between them was palpable, heartbreaking, and beautiful all at once. Elena arrived first, rappelling down to assist James. "In 20 years of studying wild horse behavior, I've never documented anything like this," she said, her scientific mind clearly blown. This foal demonstrated problem-solving, memory of past positive human interaction, the ability to communicate intent across species barriers, and delayed gratification, waiting 3 days for help to arrive. This is extraordinary cognitive function. "She's not just smart," James said, glancing up at the young horse silhouetted against the sky. "She's devoted. She refused to abandon her mother. She found a solution when instinct wasn't enough." The rescue team arrived with professional equipment, veterinary supplies, and Dr. Sarah Chen, a veterinarian specializing in equine emergency medicine. After sedating Starlight and stabilizing her leg with a temporary splint, they carefully secured her in the specialized sling. The helicopter operation was delicate and dangerous. One wrong move could injure Starlight further, or spook her into a panic that could be fatal. But the rescue team was experienced, and within 40 minutes, Starlight was lifted safely from the ravine and transported to the Montana Wild Horse Sanctuary's medical facility. Throughout the entire operation, the foal watched from above, tracking every movement. When the helicopter lifted off with her mother, the young horse did something that brought tears to every person present. She ran along the canyon edge, following the helicopter's path as far as the terrain allowed, calling out to her mother. James hiked back up to the canyon rim and found the foal standing at the edge, staring in the direction the helicopter had disappeared. The young horse was trembling. Whether from exhaustion, stress, or emotion, James couldn't tell. Probably all three. "Come on, sweetheart," James said softly. "Let's get you to your mom." For the first time in 3 days, the foal allowed James to approach closely. She was exhausted, hungry, and had completed her mission. She had nothing left to give. When James offered her water from his canteen, she drank gratefully. When he radioed for a horse trailer to transport her to the sanctuary, she didn't resist. She had found help. She had saved her mother. Now, finally, she could rest. 6 weeks later, the Montana Wild Horse Sanctuary was celebrating a small miracle. Starlight stood in a large recovery paddock, her leg healing remarkably well thanks to the surgical intervention and dedicated care she'd received. The fracture had been severe, but not career-ending. With time, she would make a full recovery and eventually be able to return to the wild. And beside her, never more than a few feet away, grazed her foal, officially named Ranger by the sanctuary staff, though James privately called her Hero. James visited them every week, always bringing apples and spending time just watching the pair. The bond between mother and offspring had, if anything, grown stronger through the ordeal. Ranger rarely left her mother's side, and Starlight constantly nuzzled and groomed her daughter, as if reassuring herself that the foal was real, was safe, was there. "You know what the remarkable thing is?" Dr. Elena Rodriguez said, standing beside James at the paddock fence during one visit. "We've been studying Ranger's behavior extensively. She shows signs of what we might call elevated awareness, a deeper understanding of human-animal interaction than we typically see in wild horses. That 3-day vigil wasn't random. She specifically chose the ranger station. She specifically waited for you." "But how did she even know to look for me?" James wondered aloud. "How did she connect human who helped mother before with human who might help again?" Elena smiled. "We don't fully understand animal cognition, especially in highly social, intelligent species like horses. But consider this. Starlight would have communicated her previous experience to her foal through behavior, through her reactions to human scent, through 1,000 subtle signals we can't perceive. When crisis struck, Ranger drew on that learned information and made an incredibly sophisticated decision." James looked at the young horse who was watching him with those same intelligent, soulful eyes that had stared at the ranger station for 3 days. "She trusted me because her mother trusted me." "Exactly. You didn't just rescue a horse from a fence 3 months ago, James. You created a relationship. You made a promise, maybe without even knowing it, that you were safe, that you could be trusted in times of crisis. And Ranger held you to that promise." The implications were profound. It suggested that wild animals could form lasting impressions of individual humans, could remember acts of kindness, could even call upon those memories in future emergencies. It was a testament to the intelligence of wildlife and a reminder that every interaction mattered. As James prepared to leave that day, something extraordinary happened. Ranger approached the fence, something she had been hesitant to do in previous visits. She stretched her neck over the top rail and very gently touched her soft muzzle to James's outstretched hand. It was a gesture of trust, of gratitude, of recognition. In that moment, James understood something fundamental. We are all connected. Humans, animals, the wilderness itself, in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. "Thank you for trusting me," James whispered to the young horse. "Thank you for not giving up." Ranger held his gaze for a moment longer, then returned to her mother's side. Starlight looked at James, and if horses could smile, he was certain she was smiling. 2 months later, both horses were released back into the wild, their band waiting to welcome them home. Before she disappeared into the forest, Ranger looked back once at the humans who had helped save her mother. Then she turned and galloped into the trees, wild and free, carrying with her a story of courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable bond between a daughter and her mother. A story that would change how James Peterson viewed the wilderness forever. Ranger and Starlight still roam the Bitterroot Forest today, and James reports seeing them occasionally during his patrols. Each time, Ranger acknowledges him before moving on, a brief moment of recognition between old friends. If this incredible true story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales of animal intelligence and the profound connections between humans and wildlife. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear this story, and let us know in the comments. Have you ever had an animal communicate with you in an extraordinary way? Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the wildest creatures have the most to teach us about loyalty, perseverance, and never giving up on those we love.